Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. For those of you that were kind enough to listen last week, I did mention that I was not planning a call for this week, but there's so much going on right now that I thought I should at least get on and do a short call. And again, for those of you calling in for the first time, I would strongly suggest you go to our call of December 14th, which was last week, because you'll get a complete description of the turnkey program we've put in place to assist you, along with a rather lengthy Q&A as well. So there's good information there. But I did, despite the fact that we're very close to Christmas Eve, I did want to go ahead and have a short call, again, because so much is going on. I'm going to try to break this down by section. First is the fact that Iraq is really pushing forward, and they seem to be going global. And this is important for the reinstitution and revaluation of their currency. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, first, they've established for the first time an electronic platform for online trading, the stock exchange. They've also established a digital platform for their currency auctions. Now, this is not only important in terms of moving, to a position globally, but it does something very important domestically and internally. It basically neutralizes the Iranians, because the Iranians have been making a lot of money by skimming these processes. But by going electronic and by going digital, they've cut them out of their ability to skim, and that's important. The other thing it does is it neutralizes also the corrupt pro-Iranian officials within the government, and most particularly Maliki. So these guys have finally, after all of these years, literally decades, been kicked to the curb. That's where they belong, and this is good news. Second, Iraq is developing into a modern nation-state with national sovereignty. The struggle has been between the creation of a nation-state and their tribal state for nearly 2 decades. And we have 3 factions, the Shia, the Sunni, and the Kurds. Fortunately, the last 2 prime ministers, one Kazemi, part of the caretaker government, and now Soudani, while they are Shia, they are moderate Shia, and they were working toward national sovereignty, not any kind of sectarian or tribal sovereignty of one group over another. So that's very important. What we've also witnessed is finally the implementation of Article 140 and working through their final negotiations with implementation of the hydrocarbon law. Now, these are 2 very important components to the reinstitution of the dinar. First, Article 140. What is it? Saddam Hussein had unfortunately committed genocide against the Kurds in Kurdistan, and as he literally, and in one day he did kill over 5,000 Kurds. As he was killing these people and moving them out of the urban areas, he was literally bringing in, quote-unquote, Arab population. So 140 basically is the de-Arabization of Kurdistan. The hydrocarbon law has to do with the pro-rata distribution of the revenue from the sale of petroleum globally. And since many, arguably most of the most productive oil wells are in Kurdistan, it seemed only fair that the Kurds receive their proportionate share of the profit. There's some minor language that's being hammered out, but my understanding is that the hydrocarbon law is basically done. It's just a matter of literally dotting a few I's and crossing a few T's. So when that's done, the full implementation of Article 140 and the full implementation of the hydrocarbon law are the final component for the reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar. Now, this is all part of the monetary reform. The confusion seems to be in what's going on with the dinar relative to the U.S. dollar in country, and when they finally reinstitute and revalue, are we looking at a LOP? Are we looking at a redenomination? And then when they revalue globally, are we looking at a pairing? Now, when we discuss the issue of a LOP versus a redenomination, these are very nuanced, kind of technical and complicated explanations. It's not important to understand that. What you need to understand with regard to the reinstitution is that whether it's done literally by going one-to-one with the dollar, or over several months going from, say, $14.50 to $11.90 and then approaching one-to-one with the dollar, the objective of the reinstitution is for the Iraqi citizens in country to utilize their own Iraqi dinar for the exchange of goods and services. So whether it's a LOP or a denomination is irrelevant. The most important thing, again, is that the Iraqi citizen use their own currency in country. Now, once that does occur, and we go to the global revaluation, what will happen is the dinar will be recognized as formally depegged from the U.S. dollar, although, and I'll explain in a moment why it's a de facto depeg in country right now as we speak. But it'll be officially depegged from the U.S. dollar, be part of the IMF basket, will be on the Forex. When we talk about pairing, we're talking about the value of the currency relative to other currencies. Right now, for example, I think I haven't looked at it recently, but the Kuwaiti dinar was worth more against the dollar than any other currency. Now, Kuwait is a very small country, but Kuwait makes much of its wealth through the transport of petroleum through the Persian Gulf. Many of the Mideast countries are the largest producers of petroleum, and in order to take that petroleum to market, they have to go through the Persian Gulf in order to disseminate it globally. Well, in order to do that, they have to go through Kuwait. So Kuwait is in essence become a very wealthy country, and their currency is very well valued against the dollar because they are in essence the global middleman. However, the wealth of Kuwait is literally dwarfed by the potential wealth of Iraq. So the Iraqi dinar, at some point when it settles in, is going to have to be worth conservatively as much as the Kuwaiti dinar, if not more. And the Kuwaiti dinar is at or perhaps even above, I should have looked before I made the call, but it's at or above $4 US. So the Iraqi dinar, over what I think will be not very long from now, will be worth a substantial amount. Now, as a side note, a year and a half ago, or thereabouts, the Iraqi dinar dropped down to $14.50, and a lot of people were extremely disheartened. They said that, the dinar was never going to reinstitute and revalue. They just had spent years and much money investing for naught. My response at the time was that's not in fact the case. The reason they dropped to $14.50 was precisely in order to collect the 3-0 provisional currency. Well, why would the CBI want to do that? It's part of the CBI operations. They need to get the provisional 3-0 currency off the street precisely because they plan on reinstituting, and there are certain players that, for a number of reasons, nefarious players, they do not want to be in possession of this 3-0 currency. Now let's move on a little bit and talk about what's going on right now with the currency. The concern, once again, is that the dinar had lost value against the U.S. dollar. Now the dinar seems to be fluctuating. Well, what does that mean? Why is this happening? In my opinion, this is once again part of the CBI operation, although it's not formal in nature and it's not officially announced. But what I think they're doing is they're beginning a float in country in preparation for the reinstitution of the dinar in country. So it's a de facto float, and we will see where that goes. Now, all of these events, in my opinion, are pointing to the inevitable and in the not-too-distant future reinstitution and then revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. I'll add to that, is it a coincidence that the U.S. Treasury is simultaneously moving to the establishment of their central bank digital currency? I don't think so. As a matter of fact, I think that the Keynesian left, and what I mean by that are the individuals that are, they believe in debt, they believe in the fiat currency. They know that the RV money train is coming down the tracks, and I'm not just talking about the Iraqi dinar. I'm talking about the dong, the rupiah, perhaps even the zim, some of these other currencies, as we move to full, complete Basel III compliance. They want to create a digital currency in order to control that wealth. Now, I'm going to be signing off in a minute. Before I do, I want to give you a little homework over the holiday. You need to Google a couple of things and understand what's going to happen, because it could be happening fast and furious in the first quarter of next year. First is the Hamilton Project. The Hamilton Project has to do with the creation of the digital currency. Also, Cloward, Piven, that's Cloward and Piven, and also Agenda 21. Now, these three are linked. Again, the Hamilton Project has to do with the creation of the central bank digital currency. Cloward and Piven was basically the creation of an open border welfare state. Agenda 21 is the globalist plan for the elimination of all borders, the elimination of personal property, and the creation, along with the Hamilton Project and Cloward and Piven, a guaranteed minimum income. Now, they sell the income as a way to, quote-unquote, equalize things. It's supposed to be something that's compassionate, that allows everyone to have a basic standard of living. Of course, and, you know, a lot of people have a hard time believing what I'm going to say, but I believe it's going to have just the opposite effect. Let me explain to you why. We know just from the pandemic, when people were receiving funds because they were out of work, we saw what happened. They had to print the money, and because people were not working, we had a reduction in the production of goods and services. What does that create? Hyperinflation. So on a larger scale, if we have the majority of the people in the world on a guaranteed income, that means the global production of goods and services and the supply chains that will deliver them to the consumer will reduce substantially. That creates hyperinflation. That creates shortages. So it's not going to work the way they want it to work. So then we have to look to Agenda 21. What's the objective of Agenda 21? To reduce the population to 500 million people. Well, if we're 8 billion now, and they want to reduce it to 500 billion, that tells you that the Hamilton Project and Cloward and Piven and a guaranteed income is not to enhance our lives, it's to eliminate the vast majority of us. Don't take my word for any of this. Look it up for yourself. The one thing I will give these globalists and these leftists credit for is they tell you exactly what they're going to do if you simply will pay attention. Now, I mention all of this because, at least in this country, by establishing our Family Asset Protection Trust package, you're going to be able to circumvent a lot of what they're doing, because through this package, you're not only going to enjoy privacy and asset protection, you're going to be able to operate outside the Federal Reserve System, and you're going to be able to circumvent a lot of the things that they're trying to do.